Hello everyone, I am Mesh and I am a senior test automation architect with 14 plus years of experience in the software test automation. I worked in R&D department for 5 years on the multiple technologies and languages. I got approved one patent and other in queue. In my current role, I explore new technologies and tools in the market, also introduce them to our test processes, and bring value to the organization. Also providing a technical architecture, defining the strategic direction for testing automation practices. Now I worked on different technologies which I said on the Java, C Sharp, Python, R language, Ruby, and some others too. I worked on Selenium. I worked on the REST Assured. I worked on a BTD. Then I worked on mobile automation with your Appium. Then I worked on load and performance using JMeter. So likewise, I have a multiple technology experience and skill set. Apart from this, about my education background, I did my B in computers and I have did my MBA in international business as well as in IT. Now, when we talked about or think about my, the social reach, I have near about 2,300 people to whom I teach or learn. I help them to understand or learn test automation. Near about 1,100 plus people, they got opportunity in the renowned organization, and 200 plus are started helping the others too. Now, when today's sessions is basically on how do we start uh, our own test automation framework from the scratch. So not only this, I wanted to showcase you what are the processes that we need to follow to build your best test automation framework. Also, you need to pay or build the design pattern, how you can select your design pattern, then how you build your own architecture to finish the work, and how your application or AUT, which we said AUT, application under test, will work on that. Okay, so I wanted to showcase you all those things. Now, before that, there is a question always comes in our mind. So now I got so many queries from the people, like they were asking, how do we answer the question of framework in the interview? Because so many people are facing challenges to answer the questions on the framework, because the reason behind is because they started working on the framework, those are already existing with their organization, and some of the things that they don't understand from the framework architecture side. Now what is today's my agenda is that I can help you to understand, I'll help you to understand exactly what we need to proceed with this test automation framework creation. Okay, so now let's jump back and going forward to the design patterns. Now the question comes, the first question in interview, what is a design pattern? And can you explain me what is a design pattern and how do you select the design patterns now? Now the design pattern is a solution to a commonly occurring problem in the software development processes. So I wanted to sort out those problem statement. Okay, so what I'm saying, design pattern will help you or is a solution on the problem those occur regularly in your software development process or your software automation process. Now we can say it is just a guideline for the developer or automation tester to write a clean and maintainable code which improves the performance of any reusable code, automation scripts or application. Okay, so this is what we wanted to understand these design patterns. Now when we said these design patterns, there are some majorly 7 design patterns which you can see on my screen. So the first one is your record and play. Then you have the classical design pattern, then the structure design pattern, then facade design pattern, then singleton, page object model design pattern, and complex design pattern. Okay, there are these 7 design patterns which we need to see in the detail. Now, when we say I wanted to understand all these design patterns in detail, before going into this design pattern, I wanted to see what we need to do. So let's talk one by one on this design pattern so that we can select how do we start our automation. So now let's see if I wanted to start building my own framework. Let's say, so if I wanted to start my new framework, let's say before I start my new framework, the question comes is only design pattern. Okay, before I start the new framework, always question comes, that is which design pattern that I need to select. Then only I can say, okay, based on my design pattern only I can select any of this or I can do my planning of my framework design and development. Okay, so now I can talk one more time on those design pattern in detail. So now let's talk about record and play first. So record and play in the many management are tempted by this the record and play testing, but don't make these tools the focus of your test automation efforts. Okay, unless you have the uncommonly static user interface and a code base. The tests this tool produce are often updated in a few weeks, and depending on how frequently you update your code, teams try to make these tools useful by their either for re-recording or that is again very often, or recording and editing. Both methods have the major problems. Now the issue is that application code, especially UI code, can change frequently. In this situation, record and playback test breaks often and negating any time savings over just going with manual testing. So that's why record and play test also stress your network resources as they grow because record and playback tools often duplicate lines of code, images or objects each time they execute. So when this duplication generates a lot of extra code, it also makes it harder to debug failing scripts. So the question comes when you should or when we should use the record and play design pattern. So record and playback tools are useful in the training because they provide automated test exposure to traditionally manual QA test teams. So don't know what code to write for a particular action, these tools can tell you and you don't have to memorize every method right away. Okay, an extremely simple web-based application functionality where the code base never changes, a very small application. So this is how the record and play is design patterns talked about. Now I can go back on the second, that is my classical design pattern. Okay, now the classical design require the creation of small and independent scripts that represents your features or functionality or module of your system base. Now, when we implement a design in modular way, tests are maintaining data sources where test input and expected output results are stored in the separate data file, and single automated script executes all those automated test cases with the multiple sets of data. Now the test is implemented through data tables and the defined final keywords. Now, classical design pattern is a programming model where the data itself controls the flow of program and not the program logic. It is model where you control the flow of by offering different data sets to the program, where the program logic is more or some generic form of flow or the state changes. Now, the design pattern is efficient and reliable. Okay, so this design pattern is definitely efficient. That means it reduces the number of test code required to test scenarios, and again it's reliable because changes in the data do not impact the test code. Now again question comes when to use this classical design pattern. So small application of not more than 100 test cases or application like data entry or form filling regularly, this type of application we can use this classical design pattern. Okay, So once we talked about one by one this design pattern, we can go towards how to build that design pattern now. Now, the third one that comes here, the structure design pattern. Now this design pattern are all about the class and object composition. Now structured class creation patterns to use inheritance to compose your interfaces. Now structural object, when we talked about the structural object patterns define ways to compose objects to obtain a new functionality always. Now this design pattern makes object relationship, that means object gets together to build large systems without disturbing existing implementation. Now keep it simple and clear when setting up an organized folder structure for a test and reusable objects. We can start with the clean and well planned folder structure for new and existing team members to understand. And if this data, if the test structure starts to get to disorganized or confusing, never be afraid to the refactor. Okay, so like we can create the readme file for an empty subfolder structure, and likewise you can mention everything in the structured way. Okay, and you can create your own tree structure for the objects where every object has same interface. So this is how your structure design patterns talked about. Now I can move. Now I can move towards facade design pattern. Okay, now we can move towards the facade design pattern. Now, when we talked about this facade design pattern, the whole idea of facade design pattern is to provide a simple and easy to use interface to the larger and more complex code, API or set of APIs. Now, this design pattern is to provide a unified interface to a set of interfaces in a subsystem. Facade defines a higher level interface that makes the subsystem easier to use. Also, it wraps a complicated subsystem with a simpler interface. Now, it has an implementation in three simple form. So the simple form likes it identify a simpler and unified interface for the subsystem or component. It design a wrapper class that encapsulate the automation code, and the facade or wrapper captures the complexity and collaboration of the component and delegates to the appropriate methods. Now, WebDriver API is neither complex nor poorly designed, so maybe making a facade is not a mandatory thing. Still, I think having a control over its usage is a good approach. Now, automation test code design is in layered structure by splitting the code in layers on the basis of logic of execution or business or feature and data sources. The topmost layer is being initializer and test case layer, and the second layer comes your business logic, common function components. Then last layer includes your libraries, business implementation, and the top interfaces. Now that's why facade design pattern helps you to lower the code maintenance cost. So this is your next design pattern. Now when I talked about the singleton design pattern, the singleton pattern is an object creational pattern. So it is just a creational of pattern because it concerns itself with the creation of objects, more significantly with making sure more than one object is not created. It is an it is an object pattern because it deals with the relationship between objects rather than the relationship between classes and their subclasses. The intent of singleton pattern is twofold, like guarantee that the class has only one instance and provide the access to that instance. And it is one of the most simple design pattern in terms of modeling, but on the other hand, this is one of the most controversial pattern also in the terms of complexity of usage. Now, when to use this design pattern? So most of the desktop application test automation, like your hardware, IoT devices automation, where we can access single hardware at a single instance. In this case, you can use this singleton design pattern. Okay. Now, important and which we are going to see in our work by work, that is page object design model pattern. Now, the page object model pattern is widely used object design pattern for structuring automation test code. Now, with this pattern, you will need to design a page object class according to the particular screen you wish to automate. Now, for example, for the Facebook login screen, you can create the login locator file, login action file, login verification, and login test class. And you can put all the UI elements in the locators as a variable in the login locator class, and all the action on those locators in the action class, and all the verification for automated test is maintained in the login verification class, and we simply call that into a single inner test, that is a login test. So this is how your page object model design pattern work. Now page object design pattern also implement page factory based implementation within it. Now in the factory design pattern, we have the superclass with the multiple subclasses, and based on some input, we need to return a particular subclass. Now it is often used when the class cannot anticipate the type of objects it needs to create beforehand, and the test then they use the methods of this page object class whenever they need to interact with the UI of that page. The benefit is that if the UI changes for the page, the tests themselves don't need to be changed, and only the code within the page object needs to change. So important point to the page object model pattern is you should keep in your mind, because such type of questions asked in interview. So important things is, according to the page object model, we should keep our test and element locators separately always, because this will keep code clean and easy to understand and maintain. Second point is, your page object approach makes test automation framework programmer friendly and more durable and comprehensive. And another important advantage is our page object repository is independent of your automation test. So keeping separate repository for the page objects helps us to use this repository for the different purposes and with the different frameworks. Like we are able to integrate this repository with other tools like, or other frameworks like your NUnit, JUnit, TestNG, Cucumber, and others. Now test cases become a short and optimized as we are able to reuse page object method in the form classes. And any change in UI can easily be implemented, updated, and maintained into the page object and the classes. And last but not least is your complex design pattern. Now, when we talked about this complex design pattern, most of the people ask about what is a complex design pattern and why we are using this complex design pattern, what is the use of complex design pattern, all those things that people is asking us. Okay, so this design pattern used in very few organizations, but it is highly recommended because of its supports on the multiple test automation framework, also test automation area, and I built some of the framework, automation framework on the complex design pattern only. In the current era of digital transformation, where mobile, IoT, cloud, big data concepts are playing a significant role, your mere automation of test or execution will not suffice. So the challenge is to design end-to-end test automation solution efficiently by integrating these methodologies, frameworks, accelerators, latest technologies, virtualization tools, and lab management solutions too. So that's why the complex architecture is important. Now, what that complex design patterns are used, and which what it leads to. So it leads to the low cost test maintenance. Also, for complex design pattern to build, we need a more skilled resource required due to the multiple languages are used, and multiple libraries and multiple types of testings is also used. Okay, that's why complex design pattern is looking more skilled resource to do these operations. Then in the complex design pattern, debugging is very easy, and it maintenance of the test data for all other design pattern is difficult, but modular form of test data management make it easier in the complex design pattern. Now integrate, I already said integrate with multiple test automation framework into the overall system development is difficult, but is more easy based on the modular form of your design pattern in the complex things. Now the maintain and analyze all your reports are very easy in the complex design pattern. Same way, the best practices that should be followed in our complex design architecture are your layer architecture. So the framework design should consist of different layers, loosely coupled, and we can say the tightly coupled too. Now, same way, It supports for different data structures. The design pattern should support all the data formats supported by API like JSON, XML, plain text, etc. Also, it will help you to do the cache implementation. There should be a provision of local cache for temporary storage of API's outputs and other test data. It will help you to inbuild parsing mechanism, like you can parse your API input and output to the relevant objects, and will be added help for automation engineer. Now it will do some basic validation supports too, where inbuilt support for some basic validation like verifying API, UI, mobile, or the mobile response code, response headers, and other data is also highly preferred. Now it will require the minimal changes in scripts. Other than this, the pattern should be designed in such a manner such that any changes in your UI, API, mobile that will least impact the automation scripts. And again, it holds some of the design patterns, that is structured test data. It maintains all your structured test data and in the structured form so that it is easy for the association of test cases, and also helps the user in debugging the issue in case of any automated test failure. And finally, we can see its reporting mechanism. There should be a reporting mechanism implemented that should define the output in user readable format rather than in responses. And this kind of report will help us to design the failure success rate in the test automation. And the finally is service validation. So there should be a test that validates the existing service status so as to ensure that test gets only executed if the service is reachable and responding. Okay, so this is how the design patterns are discussed about most of the time. Now what I would like to show you is let's go back and we can see some of our requests how to proceed. So let me open my pen. Okay, now what is the basic things first that I need when I try to start my framework implementation. When I start to my framework implementation, some of the question comes into our mind, like what are the things that I need, what are the things that I need. So I need the first thing, that is objects. I need the first thing, that is the objects. I can simply write here, that is objects are a web element. I need the first thing, that is objects or the web element. Okay, understand this, guys. This is very important while you're answering in interview, so that you are prepared for this type of answer in the your interview process. Okay, so what I said, what I need the objects web element. Now, when I said objects web element, I'll take one of the application, any of the application. Let's say I'm taking the application, and that application is my, let's say Gmail application. Okay. Or let's take an example of my LinkedIn application. Okay. I simply take an example of my LinkedIn application. Now, when I talked about my LinkedIn application, what are the things that I need? I need to log in first, then I need to click on home, then I need to do all the test cases for my home, then I need to click on my network and I need to do all my network implementation, or I need to validate all the test cases related to the my network. Then I need to validate for the jobs, messaging, notifications, and all those other features. Okay, let's say these are the basic things. Uh, what this is what I need in my first or my first requirement. Okay, now if that is my first requirement, then what I will do, I will go here and I will write those classes. So I need objects, that means I need my page login. Okay, page login. Then I need my page home. Then I need my page, for example, jobs. Okay, so these are all the pages that I need, for example. And out of all this page, every page is holding my web elements or my objects. So this is very basic requirement of mine. This is my first basic requirement that I want to do in this way. Okay, so login, home, and jobs. Once I done with this, once I'm done with this, now if I hold all these web element, then I need something that is called the action on this web element. Then I need action on these web elements. Okay, so I need another component that is my actions. I need another component that is my actions. Okay, so when I said actions, so actions hold all my action on this web page web element. That means I can simply say I wanted to perform the action on the web elements available within this login page. Okay, so what I said, I wanted to hold all the actions within this login page. This is what my first requirement. Now, so actions is my second requirement. So sorry. Now, I go back. So if this is actions, that means it is holding actions on top of all those web elements. So again, what I need here, I need my page underscore login underscore action. Same way I need my page underscore login underscore, sorry, this time it's home underscore action. And same way I need my page underscore jobs underscore uh, again action. Okay, so I'm so sorry I forgot to mention here locators for you. So let's mention here the locator. Okay, I'll take that off the side. I said a locator. Okay, same way I wanted to enter here and mention. So let's say here it is again a locator. Okay, so that you can understand, and jobs locators too. Okay, we'll not go more in detail on this. So this is my locators. Now I do have my objects. Now I do have my actions. Now once I do have objects and once I do have actions, then I need something. Those are my verifications. Okay, so verifications are nothing but a validation. Verifications are nothing but my validations, or I can write here a validations too. Okay, so verifications are nothing but my validations, or you can say the assertion on my every individual page object or my every individual action. Okay, so I repeat one more time. So when I talked about verification or validation, it will be assertion on my action, so that it is very clear that every assertion pass or every assertion fails. Okay, so now I go back and I can give here my verification. So I said my page login and forgive me spelling mistake. Okay, and then I can say the verification. Okay, same way I can add my page underscore home underscore a verification, and then I add my page underscore jobs underscore a verification. Okay, so I have added my actions, I have added my web elements, and then I have added my verifications. Now what I need after the verifications is my test. After the verification, the thing that is required is my test. So test is which calls a test, that means it is my selenium tests. Okay, it is my selenium test. I need to showcase this my selenium test to anyone. Okay, or I can say this test are nothing but which is executable, and this is what I can get the final output of this from this test. So I can simply write test here, and then what test I need. So again I need my page underscore login underscore test, and I need page underscore home underscore test, and same way I need the page underscore jobs underscore test. So I have added all my locator, I have added all my action, I have added all my test. Now this is all interrelated, this is all dependent. Okay, so do not confuse yourself in these areas. Okay, if somebody asks you what to call first or from where your implementation or execution starts, so I explained that in my last video, but still if you need I can explain one more time. So let me write down here so that you can understand that too. What I said, always your page object design model. Okay, so sorry, design model is working on these two factors. Okay, the page object model design pattern is working on these two factors always. Now what are those two factors? So first factor is my implementation. First factor is always my implementation. Okay, so the first factor is always my implementation. And when I talked about my second factor, my second factor is always my execution. Okay, so I see here that I do have my execution, I do have my implementation. So these are the two factors always on which uh, uh, always we need to work in the design pattern. Okay, now let's take an example. What comes in my implementation when I talked about my page object model design pattern? So implementation always starts with a locator first. Implementation always starts with the locator first. Then it starts with your action. After locator, then it comes to your action. After the action, then it comes to your verification. After the action, then it comes to your verification, and then it comes to your test. This is what my implementation says. Why I'm showing you? Because I wanted to explain you this architecture in the whole, or if we can say in detail. Okay, so I can go back here, and now this is my implementation. But when we say execution, my execution always starts with test first, then verification, then my action, and then my locator. Okay, so again, if we can correlate this with our current architecture which we are building, which is our requirement. So based on this requirement, I can see here, this is my objects, or this is my implementation. Implementation starts with locator, action, verification, and test. Okay, it starts with this four. This is my implementation now, but when we talked that I need to execute now, so while execution, I starts with test, calls to verification, calls to action, calls to your web element or your locator file. Okay, so that's why what I can show you here, I'm showing you the arrow in a way that you can understand now. Okay, so this your test, I wanted to show you in this way. That test calls first to your verification. Okay, test calls to verification, then verification calls to your, or I can just I can simply remove this, and I can take this from here, and I can say this calls to test calls to verification, then verification calls to my action, and I can say my action calls to my web element or my locators. Okay, this is my structure, but still there is one important factor, core factor of my architecture is still pending. Anyone wants to answer what important factor or structure is still pending that I need to implement? Anyone wants to answer? Anyone wants to answer? So I said I have just implemented four these different components, but there are still one major component uh, is still missing. Yes, this is a page object model, and you can use the same structure along with Cucumber, because I'm going to build or showcase you some of the important areas of framework architecture today and implementation. I wanted to do or showcase you some of the implementation. Okay. So what do you think, what is still missing? So, okay, somebody is asking report. Yes, Reshma. Very good answer. Very good answer. So what is exactly is missing is your core architecture. That is, that is a core architecture. That means I name it always a core engine. I name it always a core engine. Okay, so I name it always a core engine. Now what this core engine will hold? What this core engine will hold, do you think? So in the core engine you can hold, in the core engine you can hold your common functions. You can hold your initializer function. You can hold your all test data sources. Okay, you can hold your any different things like your test data sources. Is when I talk to test data sources are your different data sources we do have in uh, the automation. We can use JSON, we can use XML, we can use uh, uh, different like your properties file, your CSV file, and all those are your data sources. So what we did, I simply showcase here, there are my data sources, common functions, and initializers are used. Now all those along with your reporting and your logging, that means your loggers. So these are the important terms. These are still pending for us to add into this core engine. Okay, these are all the things that are still pending to add into our core engine. Now once I see these are still pending, now all this core engine can be utilized by anyone. Okay, either those are utilized by your action. Okay, I simply remove this, control set. Either that is utilized by your action or by your test, because there is a base class which is required and called by your test. Or you can use these common functions everywhere in your action or in your locators too sometime. So this core engine can be utilized for this multiple four components that I can showcase here in the page object model. Okay, this is what my basic structure is looking for. This is what my basic structure is looking for. Now I can simply change this basic structure. I'll keep my core engine as it is. Okay, what I'm saying, I'll keep my core engine as it is. And what is changed here, is this projects now. So let's say currently I'm doing this four components for your LinkedIn. Same thing I can do this for Gmail, same thing I can do this for Reddit, or same things I can do this for any other projects too. Okay, so this is how I can showcase is my core structure should always looks like, and this is how my framework should looks like. Okay, so now my core engine we should build, and then I can add my web element actions verification and test to the multiple different projects. Okay. Now we'll simply go back. Now we'll simply go back and start. This is how I need to build, is what my first priority. Now the question comes. Now the question comes. What are the things, or what are the parameters that I need to think before we start any framework implementation? The question comes, what are the parameters that I need to think before I can start my framework implementation? So let me open those parameters for you. I can showcase. Guys, what I'm telling you is very important, because because we are not even able to answer such questions in interview. And what I'm telling you, just follow this and you are able to answer all the questions from the framework side in interview. Okay, this is what a basic of our one of our objective to finish this. So what I'm talking about, you need to answer, even though if you have 3+ years of experience, or even you do have less than 1 year of experience, you should aware about such of this framework selection criteria or parameters. Okay, only at least you should aware. I'm not talking about that you should build even though if you have 1 year of experience, but for the 3+ year of experience people may ask you such type of questions. Okay, now I'm jumping on important topic, that is framework selection parameters. Okay, I am going to tell you what are the framework selection parameters on which we are going to select our framework. Now I can see here I do have this architecture. Now based on this architecture, what is my first requirement? So the first requirement is your licensing. The first requirement is licensing and your cost. When I talked about cost, why cost comes? Because most of the time automation fails due to the low budget. Most of the time automation fails due to the low budget. Okay, and this is happen not only in your organization, it happens at any different organizations too, that licensing and the cost or the support cost, or we can say the tool cost, is very important, because that we need to give it to or showcase it to management. Then second thing that comes into our picture is, once that cost is done, the second thing is a skill set. Second thing is the skill set. Now, why skill set is very important, we can say in the framework. Why skill set is very important in the framework? The reason to this, skill set is important, because the skill set, based on that skill set, people, or we can select the team members. Based on that, we can select the team members. Let's say I am going to start some of my framework implementation, or my framework implementation from the scratch. So what I will do, I will do the level of programming that my team members are aware. Okay, that is my one of the key factors that I need to take care of. Then I need to find out the training, documentation, tutorials are also important factor to train any of the new team members, or any of the person who joined this project the recently, or any of the person who wanted to understand this project or the team in automation framework from the scratch. So these are also important factor. Let's say I have any inbuilt framework and they don't have any training documentation or tutorials or something, and I need to directly start with automation. It's very difficult for me to start that. Same way, I need to find out how do we select the CI and a CD support to my implementation or my tools, if you are working on any of the tool. So nowadays CI and CD is very important. So people wanted to see the CI and CD implementation most of the time in their project. Okay, we can say it is nothing but your a day of support. Okay, it is nothing but your day of support. Then I wanted to see, based on this skill set, what is my requirement level of skills, or we can say experienced people I am looking for. Okay, to build this. This is one more thing. Then I can see my test execution, how simple my test execution. Did my manual team members can also execute? Did my manual team members can also debug? Did my manual team members can also analyze the report? So this is again one thing that is one of the things that we can understand or we can see in our framework. And we can see this is very high level I'm talking about. There are more, okay, there are more different parameters for to select of this framework or to work on this framework. Okay, I'll not go all those in detail because uh, I wanted to showcase you a very high level, because I wanted to start your implementation first so that you can understand what I'm talking about in future. Okay, so this is this is uh, this is what I can talk as of now. Now this is some of my basic requirement. This is some of my basic requirement while I select my uh, uh, project or framework. Okay, now I can go back here and I can just explore this, and based on this I will show you the actual architecture of any of the frameworks. I'll show you for this complex design pattern, which I said has lot of benefits over the page object. So in the complex we can use this page object design model patterns too. So let me show you, this is the one of the architecture for your the complex design pattern. Okay, this is one of the uh, I mean the architecture for your complex design pattern. Okay, now in this design pattern, if you can see, there are certain components which we have just now discussed. So if you can see, there are the component like core engine, there are the component like your core engine, then you have your test data, then you have multiple projects here, then you have your application under test. That means any of your application, either it is cloud hosted or it is on-premise application. Both of these applications are available here. Then I can see my code repository, that is my GitHub or GitLab or any other of my repository. And then I do have CI/CD like Jenkins or any other CI tool we can use to do this. And finally, I do have my reporting. These are the core structure. This is the core structure of any of this architecture. Okay, so this is the core structure of my architecture. Now what I'm talking about is, what is the test architecture is a question in interview. Now what is the test architecture is a question in interview. Now when I talked about the test architecture, it is the discipline of your looking at a stream of delivery and working out what, how and when to test to achieve this best possible outcome. It produces a framework of test activities that can be scoped, prepared and executed. Now this architecture may be a one-time architecture and supporting a fixed term program or a perpetual architecture used for ongoing product development. Okay, very important guys. So when I talked about architecture, I need to think about, this is one time of my architecture development and my one time efforts where I need to fix everything. And what I said, why complex architecture? Because I wanted to see that multiple area of testing, like my API testing, my database testing, or my UI testing, mobile testing, or load and performance testing can be clubbed within the same architecture or within the same structure. This is what the architecture says. Also, the software automation development extends far beyond to merge coding of the functional specification. Uh, so modern software automation development conforms to the life cycle that begins with the functional specification leading into the formulation of suitable architecture. Now the life cycle continues with the physical coding of the application and includes interactive testing and modification cycles to ensure the integrity of the code. Now importantly, due to the differences in testing approach and goal, each test phase can include a separate automation design and implementation. Now, thus making reusability among those phases very difficult and if not impossible, even within the same phase of the testing, reusability is not always achievable regard if multiple tests use the same operational procedures. So the finally, usually more than one person or a team can be engaged in test automation, leading to a near parallel automation solution that do not enable testers to contribute to and share from the common pool of automation assets. So the pictures of this architecture, what it represents you here, that it addresses that deficiency which we just now talked about, and we can just get some provide a novel and a non-obvious method system and apprentice for a reusable software testing framework. So that is what I want to showcase you. How we can create our reusable components is what our basic core understanding on this. Okay. Now I can go with individual component of this framework. Now if you can see here, I do have a core engine. Okay, if you can see here, I do have the core engine. Now what this core engines is, so core engine provides you the whole capability of communicating to any device like your mobile, your tablet, your IoT devices, any other devices. Okay, so every layer of your core engine has its own core feature. It is shared or it is the heart of your architecture. Now which should support to any type of automation testing. So our objective is that we can create a core engine based on uh, 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 core engine that should support to any type of automation testing, like your automation, API automation, web UI automation, mobile automation, performance and load, desktop automation, or any IoT test automations too. That is what my first core understanding of core engine. Now to build that core engine, what I need? Now to build that core engine, what I need? So to build that core engine, the first thing that I need is a business layer. The first thing that I need is a business layer. Now it has all the capability to take the test data from either JSON, XML, properties, DB, XLSX, or any other data sources. Okay, so business layer will hold data from any of these data sources, and the core reusable component to communicate with any of the above data source is provided within the business layer. Now it is the implementation of the test data management. So now that is what my first layer of my core engine says. Now what my second layer says is my common functions. Okay, so guys, I'm going in detail. So what I wanted to tell you is that you can understand this from the basics. Then only you can understand what we can build in the framework and how we are building the framework, so that you are able to answer that in your interviews too. Okay, that is what our objective. So the first objective is that you guys can understand this thoroughly. Okay, now I talked about my second, that is the common functions. Okay, I talked about second, that is my common functions. Now common functions is while doing automation using like I'm talking about web, let's say now. So while doing automation using Selenium, there are certain repetitive tasks that we need to perform in order to handle the page elements. So the aim of this invention is to highlight some common operations that we need to handle every now and then any of the operations. Now you can have the operation like open the URL in different browsers like your Chrome, Firefox, IE. Then you can do your mouse horse. Then you can take the snapshot for analyzing the failures. Then you can getting the current timestamp, handling the drop down, or clicking on link, or working on frame, or working on mouse operations or keyboard operations or any other operations. Okay, all those are the actions that I can store in my common functions. Now this is what my common functions or important component says. Now I jump on a next component, that is my component functions. Okay, that is my component functions. Now what is my component function is, so component function, now my component function says it is again a same like your common, but this is nothing but a startup script or initializer. So if I can go back in my previous the download, that what is my requirement, so I show you there I added their initializer for the framework. Now we define my base class and which extends to the multiple test classes, and it provides you the unique driver, reporter and logger object to work throughout your whole session until your execution stops. Now the question comes, tell me the difference between these common functions and common components. The question comes, tell me the difference between the common functions and the common components. So the answer to this is common functions are only limited to the area of testing. Let's say I am doing web automation, then common functions are only limited to the web common functions. Let's say I am doing the desktop automation, then common functions are only limited to the desktop common functions like your IoT common functions and likewise. But the common components are always common to any type of testing. Even though you can select any type of testing, still it is common to all. You can select any type of testing, still it is common to all. Okay, yes, it is common to all the platforms. Good answer, Reshma. So this is what we can talk about the common components. Now the question comes, what is UI handler, the next layer? So UI handler provide you the facility to communicate the different set of UI, like example your Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Safari. It is common component which is reusable for any area of testing within the solution. Okay, again it's a UI based, that means on your browser operations, or some of the browser operations are maintained in the UI handlers. Now what is exception handlers? So all the common exception handler which is the use throughout all type of testing within the solution provide you the common exception handler which will cover all type of exception like your web exception, desktop, API, performance or mobile or IoT devices exception or any of your pop-up handling or something. All those exceptions are managed within this exception handler. And if you can see in my whole architecture, my form structure is very small component. Okay, my form structure is very small component. Now I already explained different design pattern in my previous slide, but again about form is creating automated test cases can result in an unmaintainable project. So one of the reasons is too many duplicated code is used. So duplicated code could be caused by duplicated functionality, and this will result in duplicated usage of locators. So the disadvantage of duplicated code is that project is less maintainable. If some locator will change, you have to walk through the whole test code to adjust locator where necessary. And by using the page object model, we can make non-breakable test code and reduce all eliminate duplicate test code. So beside of that, it improves the readability and allows us to create an interactive documentation. Last but not least, we can create the test with the less keystroke, and implementation of the page object model can be achieved by separating the abstraction of the test object and the test scripts. There is a clean separation between test code and page specific code such as your locators, which I have just now shown you, and the layout, and there is single repository for the services or operations offered by the page rather than having these services scattered throughout the test. So that is what the page object model is saying. So now page object model are these are my 6 major and core components of my core engine. Okay, so you can explain in interview in this way. You can explain in your interview in this way. Now I can I can go back on my test data management, my next component. So when I talked about this test data management, what is there in the test data management? What is there in the test data management? We are maintaining the expected test data. If you can see on my screen, we have here mainframe, we have the database, XML, properties, JSON, and XLS. So we are maintaining expected test data in the different sources like JSON, XML, properties, DB, and XLS. This will provide you the facility to reuse an existing component to maintain your expected data for validation. So you can mention or maintain this, and you can use the business logic to access this data. So I already mentioned any test data, you can manage it from business layer where you have your data sources management. Okay, so this is how we can say the test data management component works. Now I can go back here on the application under test. That is my AUT. Most of the time people are confused what is AUT, what is application under test, and all those terminologies. So it is just where what is the application or which is the application which I am going to test. Okay, this is what we need to do. Now there are two types of application. If you can see on my screen, there is cloud hosted and there is on-premise hosted application. Okay, there is a cloud hosted and there is on-premise hosted application. On the cloud hosted, I can see my UI based or web application, API, my DB, or my mobile app hosted. Same way on my premise, if you can see, there is a huge server which we are seeing in the previous. I mean, when I started my career, that time on-premise were the huge success, and that time people were keeping all the databases on the huge server, and they're just getting those data from the servers. So same way, this is my on-premise. So that is always stored on your local or on your server side on your local or your office most of the time. Now those are the when I talked AUT. So those are the application under your test, and which we provide the facility to work on the cloud host application as well as on the premise hosted application. So as per the latest trend into the recent product development, we know the cloud host application are most reliable and provide you the flexibility. Now, keeping future in consideration, we come up with the solution to automate cloud host application, and we automate UI, API, mobile-based cloud host application. And I wanted to show you how to automate this cloud host application and what are the parameters that we need to consider while you are building your whole architecture for the cloud hosted applications. Okay. Then my next component is my GitHub. So I can talk not more on the GitHub. I already have one of my webinar on the GitHub. You can walk through with that video, and you can have a look at that 1 hour video on the GitHub. I explain all the workflow of GitHub. I explain all the practical thing on the GitHub. You can see those videos, but I'll let you know very high level on the GitHub. This is just a centralized repository which holds all your source code base at a single location. So everyone can participate to modify and add their automated area script to source, and this will keep code safe and maintainable. This is what your code repository or your GitHub is saying. Then I talked about a Jenkins. So Jenkins is one of my CI and CD, or I can say it's my helping me to do my continuous integration and deployment process. This will help me to do that. Okay, so when I said it is continuously to help me to do that, I can tell you the Jenkins is one of the best, and again open source, which has the multiple integration with the different code repository or version control systems too. That is how Jenkins works. Now the next comes is your HTML reporting. So after execution, it will provide the user-friendly unique report for all type of testing area, and which will mention the summary of execution and detail step with the screenshot attached to it. That is how my HTML report always works. Those can be a graphical report, those can be your any other reports. Okay, so now after this, what I wanted to show you is this is what my framework which we are going to implement in our basically into our structure today. Okay, so we will go here. Uh, we will so what I can say, you can just understand that from the basic. Okay, so what I mention here is how my project or my future of my framework looks like. Okay, so if you can see, I do have my automation framework using the page object model, where I have my multiple projects like my Google or multiple projects. In my framework, I do have my common functions. I have my page factory, that is my locator. I have my actions, I have my test, and I have my reports. Okay, and where I do have my business layer and all other things. Okay, so I wanted to showcase you how we can go and start this framework implementation. Okay, so now let's go back and start something from the framework implementation, and parallelly I can explain you some of the interview questions also on the framework. Okay guys, so let's start now. So before this, what I can showcase, I can start a new Java project. Okay, I can start the new Java project. I said I'm going to create a new framework. The name is automated script, is my LinkedIn profile. I said automated script underscore a framework. I do have automated script underscore framework is my framework now. Okay, I simply finish this. I simply finish this. So guys, now I have started implementing some of the framework structure. So let's understand this now. Okay, and I want each one of you to understand from the scratch. So why I said, uh, because these things are very helpful for you to answer. Now I can just explore. I have just created one framework here. I can just explore, and based on my structure, based on this structure, what you think, based on this structure, what you think, what I need on the framework side. So I have the question to you guys. Based on this structure, what do you think, what I need to create first in my structure? Based on that structure, what do you think, what is the first component that I need to create in my framework? What do you think, what I need to create? Uh, Guys, surely I'll share this framework diagram, not an issue with this. I'll share that. You can just have those later on, but you can just, I mean, we'll give you the framework and also framework diagrams too. Don't worry about it, okay? This sessions is only for you. Don't worry. You can simply understand that first. You can simply understand that first. Okay, so what we need to implement, what is the first structure do you think we need to implement? Okay, so most of the people, they are saying base class, some of the people are saying the class, objects, then someone says the core engine. Okay, any other things which do you think I need to implement in the structure first? Okay, so somebody saying it's a core engine. So let's start with the core engine then. Okay, so let's start with the core engine. So first I'm going to create my core engine. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to implement my core engine first. This is what my core engine required. I'm simply removing this source because I don't need that source anymore in future. That's why I remove that source, and I do have my core engine as a source folder in this now. Okay, so I do have a source folder as a core engine now. Now, now what we can do? What next we can do? Once we do or created our core engine, what you think? What next we can do? Anyone wants to answer on that? Anyone wants to answer on that? What next we need? What we need? Anyone wants to answer on that? What we need? Okay, somebody says the locators. Somebody says the locator. What else? Anyone wants to answer what else we need? Anything? Anything do you think what we need to mention it there? Okay, somebody says the common functions. Somebody says the common functions. So let's go back, guys. So I can do here, I can go back on my architecture. In my core engine, I do have my common functions. Okay, look at here, because this is my base requirement when I started this. Okay, this is my base requirement when I have started this. So now what I can do here is the first thing that I can create the new package. So I do have the source folder. When I say it is a source folder which holds the multiple packages. Okay, that is my source folder which holds my multiple packages. And when I talked about the package is nothing but which holds the multiple Java classes. Okay, so I'll go by one this step. Okay, so source folder and the packages, I'll go by that one by one steps now. I can create the first based on my, that is a common function. So let me create the common functions first as a package. I simply created this common functions as a package here. Okay, now I created, that is my first common functions. Then what I need after common functions, I already discussed what is a common function. So common functions are the area of testing, whichever the area of testing, we are required the common functions related to that. Now I need my another thing, that is my common component. Then I need another, that is my common components. I can create my common components. If I can go back on my diagram, I can say common functions, common components here. Okay, so I can create my common functions, I can create my common components. I have created this too. So again, the difference between common functions and common component is common functions are the testing specific, common components which is overall for multiple test areas too. Okay, that is the difference between common functions and common component. Now what you think, what next I need to create the structure? I do have common functions, I do have common component. What else do you think I need? Yes, what do you think what I need next? So common functions and common components are created. What do you think what need next? What you think what I need next? So some of you are answering, okay, good, packages and subfolders and the business layer. Very good. So good answer, Money. So what we need is next is your business layer. Next is your business layer. Okay. So we need the business layer next. So in the business layer, I can simply click here and finish. in my business layer. So if I can go back on my architecture, I have finished my business layer, I have finished my common functions, I have finished my common components, and this is what majorly that we need currently. We can see that later on further these things. So business layer is done. Now somebody's saying I need the POM structures too. Somebody's saying I need the POM structures too. Where do you think, where do I enter or add my POM structure? Where do you think or you can enter my POM structure? Okay, so I have my business layer, component functions and common functions. Now what I can do, what I can do is I simply start exploring these common functions and the common components and the business layer. Now some basic questions to you. Some basic questions to you. What are the common functions do you think I need to add? What are the common functions do you think I need to add? Let's say I'm doing the web automation for my LinkedIn profile. I wanted to do the web automation on the LinkedIn side. I need some of the common functions. So I can go by one common functions, and that common functions is, let me create the new class here. Let me create the new class here. The first common functions is your a web button. Okay, I said I need a web button. So before that, I'll close all my previous sessions so that it is not confusing to any one of you. Let me close that. Let me close all this. Okay, so as of now, I do have only one, that is a web button. So I have created my first common function, that is a web button. Now I can create a multiple common functions here. Now web button, then I have my web text box. Okay, then I have you can guys, you can let me know what are the web operations and what are the parameters or the web elements that we can add into my structure. You can suggest me, you can ping on this group, I can see, or I can see on this live chat too. So you can just mention what are the other common functions that I can add. I can start adding some of those, like web button, web text box, then web link. Okay, so any of these operations which I am performing on my browser, on my web page, all those are my common functions, all those are my web elements. Okay, so now web link, what else after the web link? So after the web link, then I do have, yes, web radio button, web radio button. Good answer, Aniket. Then we do have a web checkbox. Very good. So then we do have the web checkbox. Anything else you would like me to add here? Okay, web frame. Very good, Reshma. So then we do have a web frame here. Okay, then we do have web tables too, because we have did some of the session on web table. So we do have the web table too. I do have my web table. Then I have a web drop down too. Do you think drop down is one of the web element, guys? Then I have a web drop down too. Then do you think I can do some operation commonly on the browser? So I can add one class like the web browser too. Okay, I can add one class of the web browser too. Yes, then I can have the web alerts. Good answer, Swanan. I do have the web alerts. I can say it's my alerts. Then I do have web windows. Okay, so then I have the web windows. That means a Windows handle. Okay, multiple window handles. Then anyone else? Anyone else? Guys, we are adding more. So just these are just the sessions for you. Just do let me know. Anyone else? Web tooltip. Web tooltip. Then do you think we do have web calendar? Then we do have the web's image. We do have a web calendar. We are going to implement all those. Okay, so then we do have a web image. What else? Anything else that you think that I'm missing here? Okay, anything that you think I'm missing here? Any other web element that I'm missing here? What do you think? Do you think we need to add something more on this? Do you think we need to add something more on this? Yes, I am going to, because this is a framework session, guys. So we are going to see all those implementation. Not today, if possible, we'll definitely do that. But if time permits, definitely we'll do that. Not an issue. Okay. But web drop down, what else? What else? Yes, very good answer, Nikhil. Very good answer. You forgot something about the screenshot too. But do you think that web screenshot comes here? Do you think web screenshot comes in the common function? Yes, that will not. So I can say a web text area. A very good answer, Shruti. Very good answer. So we can say web text area. Okay. So there is a difference between text box and text area. So when say web action, so as of now we have not added any mouse operations. So yes, we need a web mouse operation. We said web mouse operation. Then we can say another one, that is your web keyboard operation. Then we can say web keyboard operation. Okay, this is next. So now what you think, what else is comes under the common functions? Guys, this question is open to you all. You can answer, because I'm building this framework and you guys need to understand that framework from the scratch. Okay, that's why we are building this framework here. What else do you think? Yes, so we already take drop down. So Mohit, do you think we need to take the select? We already take the drop down. If we take the drop down, then do you think we need the select here? Not required. Okay, that is not required. Yes. So what else do you think we need here on these common functions? As of now, we simply added your web alerts, browsers, button, calendar, checkbox, drop down, frame, image, keyboard operation, then link, mouse operation, then radio button, then table, then text area, text box, tooltip, and the windows. Okay, as of now, yes. So Manipati, we have added all those. So I think we have covered most of those. So you can understand, right, guys, how we have added some of these common functions. I simply wanted to show you that first. Yes, Reshma, very good. So what Reshma is saying, you can add some of the class like synchronizations too. You can add the class like web synchronizations too. Web synchronization. Anyone wants to answer what is a web synchronization? Anyone wants to answer what is a web synchronization? Anyone wants to answer what is web synchronization? Good answer, Reshma. Anyone wants to answer what is a web synchronization? Okay, yes, good PU, very good answer. Yes, Arun, very good answer. So synchronizations are nothing but your weights and synchronization. Good. So what PU is saying, we do have something like the scrolling also. So we can simply create one more class like the web scroll. We can create one more class that is a web scroll here. Okay. So see how many classes are there as a common functions as of now. Okay, how many classes are there as of now for our common functions? So we are going huge in the classes as of now, and now what is the state that we need to work on this. Now we need to build all this. This is what our next step. So as of now we have finished everything and added most of these classes. Now we need to move towards something very important on the different layers. Okay, so we simply added some of the classes here and then we can see how it works. Okay, so as of now just focus on these guys. So let's try to understand from the core architecture structure. So I'm going back one more time here. Now what I did, I simply finished my core engine. Now what I did, I simply finished my core engine here. Now based on this core engine, I need to start my further implementation. I need to start my further implementation. Now anybody wants to answer what next I'm going to implement? Anybody wants to answer what next I'm going to implement? Any answer, guys? Because I have this basic code structure which I'm going to implement. So any answer, what next I'm going to implement? You can answer, that's perfectly fine. I'm reading all your answers, don't worry about it. You can go with this, that's not an issue. Just let me know what else we can do here. What do you think? What else? Okay, okay. So Arun is saying the page classes. Anyone else? Anyone else wants to try? What else we are going to implement here? So as of now, we have added all. I'm just closing all because we need to implement that one by one, not all together, definitely. So what else do you think we need to do? Okay, repository of the web elements. Aniket is saying locator. Anyone else? Anyone else wants to try? Okay, locators. Okay, so test ng project. Swapnil is saying okay. Then test data management. Okay, Garvita is saying business layer. Very good answer, Garvita. Okay. What else? What else, guys? What else? So very good answer. Out of you, I mean, you tried very well, but the answer is the business layer now. Okay. So answer is we are going to implement next is the business layer. Now I can show you what is the business layer. So I discussed some time back that what is there in the business layer. So what I need in the business layer, I need some of my parser. Like I need my JSON implementation. Okay, I need my, or I can simply say JSON reader. For example, I'll follow the one language. I need my JSON reader. This is my one class. Which other data sources do you think we can add here? Guys, do let me know one by one. Okay, so yes, Riaz, you write a property file. Very good answer, Riaz. So I can add here a new, that is a property reader. Very good. Very good answer. Okay, yes, very good answer, Garita again. You write Excel reader, yes. Any other data sources, guys, which you are aware about? Why I'm asking these questions to you? Because I want these sessions to be live and interactive with you, so that you can understand this from basic, okay? So that you can explain in your interview in the same way. That's the reason that I'm going in detail, okay? So the next one is Excel reader. What else? Anyone else? The data sources. Yes, PU, we already added Excel. Yes, Reshma, we already added Excel. What else? Yes, Jason is already added. Reshma, that is also done. That is also done. Yes, these are all the data sources. Now, when I talked about the data sources, all the data sources, when I said data sources, all these data sources are nothing but which maintain my test data. Okay, which maintain my test data. That's why we are looking for all those test data. Any other thing that you would like to add? Yes, Amaya, very good answer. Very good answer. Somebody says, or Amay says, it's a database reader. Very good answer. So we can say the DB reader too. There are multiple and different types of databases, but I can write here DB readers so that it's very easy to understand. Okay. Yes, Riaz, we can say Apache POI, we can use that in Excel reader, that's fine. Which PU is saying CSV, so CSV also manage into the Excel reader. No need to write the separate class for CSV. No need to write the separate class for CSV because you already maintain that in the Excel. Okay. So I have added these 4 data sources. Any other data sources? Any other data sources you guys are thinking? Any other data sources you guys are thinking? You can just tell me. It's very important, guys. You just understand the thing which we are discussing. Yes, config. When you say run a config, so config is nothing but maintained in your properties. So config.property is your property file. So that's why we had already one class or data source class, that is your properties reader. So no need to maintain another one, that is your config. Will that make sense? Okay. Now, now I can just go more in detail of this now. Okay. So in interview there are some question, and what I'm doing is there are some best practices that should be followed in our framework or architecture. So the first is layered architecture. When I talked about layered architecture, the framework design should consist of a different layers loosely coupled to each other. That means it should be very loosely coupled. That means in the middle, there should be the light generic layer, and that should be the common point for invoking services and retrieving results. Then another best practice should be a support from the different data structures or different data sources. Like the framework should support all the data formats supported by AUT like JSON uh, and XML, plain text, or etc. Same way, it should have some cache implementation too. So there should be a provision to local cache for temporary storage of your AUT. AUT is already your application under test outputs and other test data. Then we do have the fourth. that is inbuilt parsing mechanism. When I say inbuilt mechanism, it should be an inbuilt mechanism for parsing application input and output to relevant objects, and which will be added help for the automation engineer. Okay, then we do have the basic validation support. Now when we say basic validation support, it is having inbuilt support for some basic validation like verifying your API response code, your response headers and other data is also highly preferred. Okay, then we are managing minimal changes in scripts. So why I'm discussing these things, so that you can answer in interview in this way. So minimal changes again, because when I work on the maintenance, otherwise I am regularly doing some maintenance in my script, and this which will leads to me a very huge maintenance of my script. So that's why minimal changes in scripts are required. And then my structured test data is very important factor to build your test architecture. So test data to be used in the structured form so that it is easy to association of your test cases, and also helps the user in debugging the issues in case of any application failure during your execution. Okay, and that's how we can say some of important things are your our core architecture should hold. And then your reporting mechanism, and then reporting mechanism, that should be reporting mechanism implemented, that should be define the output in user readable. So I'll write that one by one. I'll write that one by one so that you can understand this in detail. Why I'm writing this, so that you can know what are the core or what are the best practices that we should always follow while writing or building our test automation architecture. So always my first is my layered architecture. Okay, then my second is my support for different data sources, support to different data sources. Okay, that is my second. Then I said I do have the cache implementation for my local failures. So I said a cache implementation. Then I do have my inbuilt parsing mechanism. Okay, I said inbuilt parsing mechanism. Okay, these are important things. Sorry for any spell mistakes. Then I have basic validation support. Okay, we can go this one by one definitely while creating all our framework. Now minimal changes in scripts, that I don't want huge maintenance. I don't want huge maintenance in my scripts. Then I can say a structured test data. I need the structured test data. This is the best practices I'm telling you. Okay, guys, you cannot see this anywhere on any of your basic structure or any where if you can find so many videos on the YouTube, but you'll never find such the basic implementation or the best practices anywhere, because I wanted to showcase you, because one of my patented product is also we are implemented these best practices. Okay, then we do have the next, that is my reporting mechanism. Okay, I can say reporting mechanism, and then I said that last, that is my services validation. Okay, that I said a services validation. So these are the best practices which I wanted to discuss with you. Now what I mentioned and explained today about these best practices, if you can explain 40% of this, believe me, you can crack any of this interview. Okay, if you can explain at least 40% out of this, still you can crack any of your interview, because this is this is how people are looking for, or people wants to see the structure that you followed or best practices that you implemented. If you are the senior test automation engineer, or if you are the automation engineer and you are doing regular automation, then you need to understand these best practices. Okay, so that anyone or any of your interviewer is understanding those things. Okay, so now I can go back one more time on my implementation. Now I can go back one more time on my implementation. Now what you think, what next I am going to implement? Any answer on this, guys? What you think, what next I am going to implement? Any answer on this? What you think, what I am going to implement next? Any answer on this? What you think, what we are going to implement now? What we are going to implement now? Any guess what we are going to implement now? What you think? Not yet finished all our implementation as of now. So do you think what we are going to implement next? What you think? I'm reading your comments, guys. You can answer yes. Okay, so Neeraj is saying locators. No, Neeraj, still not locators. We are going on locators. Don't worry about it. But not now. Definitely will go on the locators. Definitely will go on the locators. What else? What else do you think? Anyone else wants to try? So guys, make this session interactive. If you want to understand this framework in detail, then make this framework interactive. Okay, make this framework interactive. This session is interactive. So tell me what you think. What next? What next? So I'll not wait for your answers. I cannot see. Some of the people are thinking yes, but what we start with the common components now. What we start is we can start with these common components now, guys. Okay, so I can now build my common components. Now I can build my common components. So yes, Padmaja, good answer. So yes, initializer. So based on this, now I am going on my common components. Okay, so if I can see my architecture again, I am going to implement these two, and now I'm going to implement my common components. So what common components implementation I am looking for? So first I am going to implement here a class that is a initializer class. Okay, or I can say initializer. Okay, I can simply say it initializer. The first one is my initializer. Once I'm done with initializer, what you think, what is there in initializer? Anyone wants to answer on that? What you think, what is there in initializer? Any answer? Any answer? What is there in initializer? We see, guys, see how big our framework is looking like now. Okay, so believe me, till the point we completed all our architecture and finish our architecture, this looks like the huge structure, so that you can understand this from the scratch, how we are building one by one component. Okay, so okay, yes, Pooja, very good. Encryption and decryption of your data reader, very good answer. Okay, but what do you think, what is there in initializer? Yes, Sambit, very good answer. So what Sambit is saying, it is nothing but my WebDriver creation, which is a very good answer. So initializer, which holds my WebDriver creation. Okay, it's a very good answer. Then yes, it should have some of the browser implementation. Again, it's a good answer. Very good, Padmaja. Yes, PU, very good answer. Now I do have my next component, and the component name is, the next component name is my logger reader, or I said simply logger. The next component is simply a logger. What do you think, what is there in the logger? Anyone wants to answer? What is there in this logger? What is there in this logger? What do you think? What is there in this logger? Any answer? आज का कैलकुलेशन था. Yes, guys. So anyone wants to answer? What is there in this logger? Anyone wants to answer on this question? Okay, no. Logger does not hold your login and logouts of the, not even Pranay. Okay. Okay. So logger holds all your log implementation. Very good. Yes, Ajinkya. Very good answer, Ajinkya. So what Ajinkya is saying, it holds, yes, very good answer, guys. So logs and all, but it holds your always what my application is doing, all my info about the steps. Okay. So it will always tell me all the information about the steps. So this is what my logger says. So my logger says I need the information about my steps. This is what my logger says. So in my logger, I can use a different types of logger. In my logger, I can use the different types of logger. Anyone knows which type of other loggers that we can use? Anyone wants to answer which type of logger that we can use? Anyone wants to answer on this question? So any answer on that? Okay, so do not answer for the logger. Sometimes yes, I know most of the time, I mean, we answered wrong in framework. That's why explaining each and every this component for you to understand. Okay. Yes, Aniket. Yes, Vishali. Very good answer. Log4j. Yes, PU. Yes, Ajinkya. Yes. What Ajinkya is saying, info pass fail. Yes, but we can use log4j is one. Yes. Okay. So now, log4j is one of the logger implementation that we can take. Log4j is one of the logger implementation which we can take. There is some inbuilt reporting log4j loggers also available. Like if you knows, the Penguin report has its own inbuilt logger implementation. Then you have some extent, again it has its own logger implementation, and likewise. So they do have their logger implementations too, and based on those logger implementation, we can get a system or our execution steps info or the detailed information about our step execution. Okay, that is what my logger says. Now the next question to you guys, what comes next? After logger, what comes next? After logger, what comes next? Anyone wants to answer? After logger, what comes next? After the logger, what we need to implement the new common components? Anyone wants to answer on that, guys? What is the new components that we are going to implement in the common components? Anyone wants to answer? What is the new component that I'm going to implement here? The new class that I need to implement here? Any answer on this? Any answer on this? What we need the new logger or new function here? Very good answer, Padmaja, Reshma. Yes, Swanand. Good answer, Vaishali. Good answer, Tejas. So what we need a reporter management. What we need the next is reporter management. I need next is my reporter management. So what we did as of now, if you can see, my reporters or my reports are always common to all my common functions, all my projects, all my different types of testing. Either it's API testing, either it's uh, your UI testing, or mobile, or performance, or desktop, or your IoT testing. So your reporter will always be a common to you guys. Okay, so your reporter is always a common to you guys. So now what I'm talking about, now what I'm talking about, so when I said reporter, now anyone knows a different types of report here? Anyone wants to answer on that? Anyone wants to answer which type of reporter that we can use? Which type of reporter do you think we need to use? Anyone wants to answer on that? Guys, try to answer. You guys needs to answer in interview. Okay, I am going with the same questions what people may ask you in interview. Okay, try to focus on those questions and its answers. So so anything that you would like to answer? Anyone's? Okay, so available reports. Yes, I am asking available reports. Rakesh. Okay, so Swanand is saying extent. Yes, very good. What else? What else? The extent report is one. Very good. Somebody says extent, then somebody says allure. Yes. So there are multiple reports available. Like extent report is one, then you do have allure report is one, then you do have the penguin report, another one. Very interesting. This penguin report. We do have that implementation with the penguin report. It is giving you a very good implementation of your reporting. I can showcase that in future sometime when time permits. Okay, so if you wanted to understand that penguin report in detail, I'll take one session on that penguin report. Not an issue, guys. Okay, on the reporting, definitely I'll take one session on the report. Good answer, guys. So most of you are answering extent report, but there is a better report than the extent in the industry. But though it is available for you and your work, so I can maintain or manage that reporter management is holding your extent report nowadays. Okay, so let's hold on here. Now, what else I can add in common components? I have added initializer, logger, and reporter management. What else do you think I can add here, the additional things in my common components? What do you think, guys? What do you think, guys? What else we can add? What else we can add? Yes, there is a BI reports too, Pooja. Yes, test engine is also one. Very good. Yes, Vaishali Allure is also one. So what else? Any other component that I'm going to add here? Any other? Okay, so very good answer, Reshma. Okay, very good answer. So what Reshma is saying, she is saying, can we add the base class? So though we have added initializer, but still let's add the base class because most of you are aware about the base class. So anyone wants to say what is a base class? Anyone wants to answer what is a base class? Anyone wants to answer what is a base class? What is a base class, guys? Anyone wants to answer what is a base class? What is a base class? Yes, we'll definitely add listeners too. Very good answer, Vaishali. But what is base class? Anyone wants to answer on that question? What is base class? What is base class? What do you think? Okay, very good. Good answer, guys. So the base class we can execute. Okay, all the test. Okay, test util. Very good. Okay, main body of a code is extends to other class. Very good answer, Pranay. Okay, having default implementation is what Sarang is saying. What else? What else? It's a parent class. Very good answer, Sagar. Very good answer, Sagar. Okay. So base class contains all your configuration details. Good answer, Neeraj. Very good answer, Neeraj. Okay. It's a very good answer. When you said it contains all your configuration details is a very good answer. Okay. And it contains all your common functionality. Yes, PU. But something more I would like to see from the base class perspective. You guys need to say something from the base class perspective. You are missing something. Very good answer, Anand. Very good answer, Anand. So what Anand is saying, it is the first class that to invoke. Okay, what Anand is saying, it is my first class that should invoke is what my base class. Very good answer, Anand. Okay, that is what answer I am looking for. So now in my framework or in my architecture, always my first class that invoke or my first class that called is always a base class. Okay, in my framework, if the first class that invoke or the first class that always called is my base class. Okay, now what my base class is holding, so base class is holding all my details. Base class is holding all my details, like it holds my setups. Which setups that I can tell you? One by one, I'll explain you setups. The now setups, like I said, I need the setup like for before every single individual test, what I need to do. Before every single test case, what I need to do. Same way, before every single test class, what I need to do. Then before every single suit, what I need to do. Then my setup says before all my tests to start, what I need to do. These are all my basic implementation or setup which I can do in my this base class. Okay, this is all setup that I can do in my base class. Okay, so this is what my base class is saying. Now base class is used to do some of your setup. Base class is always used to do some of your setup. Now base class is a parent to all your child classes, all your test classes. When I say base class is a parent to all your child test classes. Okay, so base class is a parent to all your child classes. That is how a base class, that is how base class works. Okay, that is how base class works. Now now I have this couple of things that we have implemented about our core engine. What we did as of now, we have finished all our core engine implementation. Now, what you think, what we can do next? Now, what you think, what we can do next? Any question, any answer to that question? Like I did all this implementation. Now, what we can do next? What you think? What we can do next within this framework? You think? Anyone wants to answer on this question? Anyone wants to answer this question, guys? What we did next? What we did next? What do you think, guys? What we do next? Okay, somebody's saying the reusable functions we can write. Somebody's saying the reusable functions we can write. Okay. Okay, good answer, Padmaja. Good answer, Padmaja. Anything else? Anything else do you think we can do? Anything else we can do? Okay, we can do the browser setup, Ninu. Yes, good answer. Browser setup also we can do. Yes, good answer. Very good answer. What else? What else? What else? What else? Okay, so guys, I was I was supposed to now, let's see, there is huge to explain in the framework, and we can go this all these one by one steps. That's not an issue. We can go, but I was not having the, I mean, we are over the time today. I can say now we are going to stop it here. And what I would suggest you guys, you can just walk through with this video one more time before the next session, okay, and then I can go and implement something interesting in the framework architecture. Okay, in my next session I'm going to implement very interesting something new in this framework architecture that will help you to understand what are the things that we need to consider when we worked on the automation testing, okay, or when we think about automation framework, or when we think about our architecture. Okay, so for today I'm going to stop it here, and we can meet again on the framework structure in somewhere in the next week. So till this point, guys, thank you so much for joining. And it's a bit later, and it was the long session today. So if you want, if you like the session, just click on like. If you dislike, then click on the dislike. That's perfectly fine to us. And if you like, you can just subscribe to our channel. We wanted to show you something more on the different technologies too. And if you are okay and you wanted to follow me, you can go back and follow me on the LinkedIn. You can search automated script there, and you can just find me over there, and you just send me the request. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so thank you so much for joining, and we can meet in the next session. Thank you so much one more time. Bye.